What's up guys, it's me Lego Paradise here, and today I'm going to show you the latest progress on my motorized Lego Racetrack. It's been a long time since the last episode, but since then I've made lots of new additions and improvements to the racetrack, which include the grass, gravel pits and red and white stripes located around the front and island parts of the racetrack, the grandstands, which I finished up and added this camera tower in the middle, and of course the all-new race control tower and gift shop building at the back there, as well as many more finishing touches and improvements all throughout the track. So let's begin by taking a look at the middle with the flag starting system. You might notice that I've swapped the order of the flags around so that the race now starts when the cars see a green flag rather than when the sensor sees the green flag, and vice versa with the red flag, since this was pointed out by someone in the comments of the previous video, and it makes a lot more sense this way. So with that minor adjustment to the logic of the Mindstorms system, you might also remember I mentioned that I wanted to disguise the Mindstorms colour sensor a bit better, and you can see I've achieved this by building this camera tower right over the top of the sensor, and I think this works really well just to hide that sensor inside there. You can see it just through the bars, but if you didn't know it was there, it's not even really that obvious that there is something inside that tower. And besides, I thought this was the perfect way to fill this space, because it makes sense that there'd be a camera right at the start there that captures all of the cars as they're going past the start and finish line. And speaking of the camera, you'll see that I've designed these cool little cameras based on some real life images of racetrack camera equipment. And you can see that includes a small control panel for the camera operator, who's currently sitting at the top of the tower, and an adjustable arm so you can move that up and down and choose the best angle for the camera. And since I wanted to make these cameras have a matching design all the way around the racetrack so that it'd be as realistic as possible, I've made sure to include a similar camera stand design for each of the cameras I've placed around the racetrack. So for example, here we have the same style of camera, but this time a handheld one, also with a small screen. That's just designed to be portable, while on this corner of the racetrack I've built a much more static camera that's currently standing on a tripod, and it's being operated by an operator standing safely behind this tyre wall. But back to the camera stand for just a second. You can see the short fence which I've placed at the top just for some extra safety, as well as a long ladder providing access to the tower. I also decided to make the cable for the Mindstorms sensor a bit neater by opening up the ground underneath the tower and providing a place where the cable can just slot through and not have to be suspended all the way across the pit lane up in the air somewhere. And I think this is another great little improvement for this area of the racetrack. Heading back around to the front, I've finished up the fence of the grandstand. I think that looks really good with the bright yellow chain link fences with the different colour flags on the top. And I think this just completes the look of this whole area. And of course, since I always try to make my creations as realistic as possible, I've included a small set of stairs just to lead up to the grandstand. And if we go around the front of the racetrack, around the entrance, you can see how those stairs just lead up in the middle there and provide some access to the seating of the racetrack. Next, we'll take a look at the landscaping around the front and the middle. And I'm really happy with how these parts have turned out, because my goal for these areas of the racetrack was to provide some good contrast in the colour between the front half and the back half of the racetrack, while also not building anything up too high that it would block the buildings or the structures behind it. And I think I've achieved this really well and included some good realistic details, such as these gravel pits along the corners, both on the outside and inside corners, just on both halves of the racetrack there, as well as this famous red and white markings, the stripe design that continues all the way around the corners and straight parts of the road, just like on real life racetracks. And I've built these out of some of the flat 2x4 roof tile pieces and the 2x2 pieces on the corners. And I'm quite happy with how that pattern has turned out. Also on the corners, I've built out some small tyre walls, and I think that's a really cool little feature. And you can see how I've built these out of some small Lego tyres in between some larger ones to provide this nice curve for the tyre walls. And I've differentiated these a bit on each corner. See, on this corner there's some arrows to indicate the direction of the turn, while on the other corner is the cameraman with his camera on the tripod safely behind this tyre wall, which doesn't have any of the road signs. And then in the island in the middle, this area was also important that it wasn't too tall and didn't cover up any of the buildings behind it. And the way I've done that is adding some decorations in the form of some adverts, just some sticker Technic pieces, which I thought worked really well, as well as this lap timer in the middle. And this is a really cool brick I got from a Lego Racers set. You can see how it's stickered on both sides, and this means that not only can we see the lap times clearly from here, but also all of the minifigures which will be seated at the grandstand, they will also have a great view of the information on the lap times board. Now we get to the main addition to the racetrack, which is the race control tower. This is an especially interesting building, not only because of its highly modern architectural design, but also because of the fact that it's the tallest building in the racetrack. You can see how it towers over even the tallest floodlights, and that's because the aim of the race control tower is to provide the commentators and race organisers a clear view of the racetrack below. And you can imagine how great that would be if you were a minifigure inside the tower. You'd have a fantastic panoramic view all the way around 360 degrees. And I achieved that windscreen just using a bunch of different sized car windshields, mainly the older style. I think they work really well, and you can see they let in plenty of light even behind the racetrack. And another big difference between this building and the rest of the buildings on my racetrack is that instead of the usual white and grey colour scheme, I decided to go for this bright red as the main colour. A couple of reasons for this. The first reason is because I was actually running quite low on the white bricks after using them up for both of these buildings, the grandstand and of course the base of the racetrack. And since I wanted to make such a tall tower, I didn't want to be limited by my lack of white brick supply. And secondly, this means that the race control tower building stands out behind all of the other structures around the racetrack and allows for some cool design patterns, such as this black and white checkerboard pattern that runs all the way around the base of the middle part of the tower. And something like that design just simply wouldn't stand out as much if I had implemented that into a plain white tower. So I'm quite happy with the colour scheme of this building. Because this building is located so far towards the back of the racetrack, a lot of the lower half is covered up by these grandstands, so I'll remove them in just a little bit so we can have a better look at the exterior. But first I wanted to show you guys how this building connects to the rest of the racetrack. So if we start at the front, this is where the main entrance to the racetrack is, for both the workers, race drivers, or civilians who are just spectating the race. And I've decided to mark the entrance with this cool little green tent. And this acts as a canopy just to protect people from the rain and advertise one of the brands which is being advertised at the racetrack. And you can see if we look down underneath the tent from a minifigure perspective, that extends all the way back to the pit stops. Although for any normal spectators of the race, they're denied access by that gate at the back there, with just a small no entry sign. To help guide the visitors to the racetrack towards the grandstands, there's also a small stickered arrow piece and the stairs which you saw earlier to access the visitor areas. And my idea for this area, and really any of the places in the racetrack which have lots of studded areas, is to tile them over with some 2x2 or 2x4 light grey or dark grey tiles. That's just one of the small finishing touches I'm going to add to the racetrack, and I'm going to need to order a few more parts to complete that. If we get to the actual race control tower structure itself, there's actually a sort of balcony area. This extends towards the grandstands with a bridge, because my original idea was not to have the entrance of the grandstands be connected with some stairs, but actually connected directly with the bridge. So the visitors go up the stairs here and enter the grandstands through this fence. And of course the fence wouldn't be there if I was going to go with that idea. But the reason I decided against that, and instead went with these simple stairs for the entrance, is because I felt that the grandstand simply looked better with all of these fences being connected, because it did look a little bit odd with no fence here and instead just the bridge connecting there. But I decided to keep this bridge here anyway, even though it's not really got much purpose, since it still provides the minifigures with a bit of an area to spectate the pit stops and pit crew, and I think that's just a cool little addition to this building anyway. In front of these stairs, here's just a small fake winner's podium where the minifigures can go and take their own photos and pretend that they've won the race. So that's just a cool little tourist feature I decided to add there. And then there's not much else on the top of this balcony area. I've just added a few simple tables and chairs, and I might add a few more in the empty spaces along this area. But for now, I'm still deciding what to put in that area, so I've left that nice and open. With the grandstands out of the way, we can see the rest of the exterior. And you'll notice just how little space there is behind the grandstands, which normally occupy the studded surfaces on these two base plates. And that means I've had to utilise this area as best as I could in order to fit everything behind it, which includes the bases to the floodlights, the stairs up to the grandstands themselves, and the gate to provide access to the racetrack. And here you can see a better look at the no entry sign, and you can see how it hinges open to provide access and enough space for any cars, race drivers, or pit crew that need to access the racetrack. Underneath this canopy, you can also see the gift shop. And this is obviously where the visitors to the racetrack will enter from. It's just before the no entry part, so they can easily walk to it from the entrance to the grandstand. And you can see some small Lego sets inside, as well as some other race souvenirs and an ice cream cooler in the corner. And I'll show you some more of the gift shop inside very soon. So, like with all of the buildings on my racetrack, I've designed the race control tower to have each of its floors be removable, to provide some easy access into the interiors. So we'll start by removing the top floor, the roof. And before that, I'd just like to say that this is not finished, this roof especially. I still want to add a lot more detail to this, such as some antennas and aerials and communications dishes, just something to make it look a bit better. But for now, I've just placed a bright blue TV advert, and you can see the hatch to provide access to the roof. That can open up, just made of a window shutter piece, and you can see the long ladder going all the way down to the bottom of the control tower, and a bit of the rooms inside. So let's take a look at those rooms. And the first of these rooms is the main control tower. There's quite a lot of specialised computer equipment, a small microphone for the commentator to sit there, and while there's not much space in here, I suppose a few minifigures could sit in there or stand up in there if they needed to, but I've just decided to have one chair for one minifigure, so it's not too crowded. There's just a wrong colour window, but that's because I haven't found another one in blue. But I'll also get that fixed for when the racetrack is going to be finished. And before I remove this segment, you can have another look at the ladder. You can see how that goes all the way down the tower. And there's nothing else in this part of the tower. There's just some structural reinforcement. So let's get to the next section. Now this room can actually be accessed from this balcony area, and this is more of an office for the administration and the staff at the racetrack. So this is, for example, where the flags are kept when they're not being used, and also a collection of some of the trophies which are awarded to the race drivers. And then there's just some filing cabinets in the corner, and some documents and posters on the wall. And there's even a water cooler. And let me just go around to provide a better view. You can see there's a small area to put your cups. I thought this is quite important to include just some sort of office for the racetrack for some of the administration. And then finally, the ground floor of the racetrack control tower is home to a variety of rooms with many different purposes. So if we start at the beginning, you can see that this is just another garage. And I decided this was a good use of the space, since there wasn't actually any studs on this base plate, so there wasn't that many options to build any other types of rooms, except somewhere that can house some small cars or utility vehicles owned by the racetrack. And I've also included some small cupboards, nothing inside those ones though, as well as some tools on the sides of the walls. This small side room behind there is just a small first aid station. Since it is a racetrack, and if there's any accidents or emergencies, the patients can temporarily be stored in this first aid room on a stretcher, which can be accessed through this door here, and that includes some small medical essentials in the cupboard up there, a sink, some towels, and a syringe just on the wall there. And then there's this cool medical design window on the side there. And then the main room of the ground floor is the gift shop. So we saw a bit of this through the windows, but now you can have a better look. And some of the gifts being sold at the shop include some fake flags. These are unlike the ones used on the rest of the racetrack. These are just stickered pieces, but they're sort of toy souvenirs. Then some more cupboards for some more gifts. Ice cream cooler, although I still need to fill that with ice cream. And then here you have some toy winners' cups to act as trophies. Some racing driver collectible figures. And of course a bunch of Lego sets in that middle shelf. All car themed, or themed with transportation, so it's linked to the racetrack. And then you have the till in the corner with the cash register and another cupboard behind it. And then on this wall, I've included some small miniature cars made out of some roller skate pieces and just some different coloured plates. And they're sitting on a bunch of shelves. And you can imagine how these would be the right scale for the minifigures. And then the floor of the gift shop just includes this very nice beige wooden tiling pattern. And I'm really happy with how that has turned out. So that's what I've been working on around the racetrack, and this will probably be the last work in progress episode before the final video of the completed racetrack. Because all that's really left to do is fill in the missing pieces, populate the racetrack with a whole bunch of minifigures, and add the finishing touches. But once all that is complete, it'll be really cool, so don't miss the final video of the finished racetrack. Apart from that, I've been working on quite a few other LEGO creations, so be sure to stay tuned. And don't forget to give the video a like, share, comment and subscribe for more. And I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.